Hi Homeworthy, I'm Jen. Welcome to my home in Houston. I would love to show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Jen McDonald, and I am a garden designer in Houston, Texas. So we are in Houston, Texas in the Memorial neighborhood, and welcome to my home. I feel like it is very heavily influenced by Nancy Meyers. So we have lived here for 5 years. We moved in right before COVID, and we were not looking for a house when we found it. However, we had driven by the backyard on the way to school so many times that I always wondered who lived here. And so when the house went on the market, I just had to see it. And then it turned out that we couldn't live without it. This is obviously our first impression of our home. And when we moved in, it felt a little more Beauty and the Beast, maybe more Beast than Beauty. It had a really big, heavy chandelier, and it had heavy, dark, like laminate flooring. And so I had a vision right away of what I wanted this space to be. It just took a little bit of time to make it happen. So right away you'll see the black and white checkered floor, which I absolutely love. And I did it right before Christmas because we always have a big grand Christmas tree here, and I really wanted it to look kind of like London. The clock is actually from Round Top, and I first fell in love with this type of clock in the movie You've Got Mail, which was another Nancy Meyers movie that I loved. So I saved up all my pennies, and this was one of the first pieces that I purchased for our home. Another thing that I love about the entryway is this piece of art. This is from my favorite artist. This is Kenton Nelson. And funny story is I saw this piece actually and one other piece in the movie Something's Gotta Give with Diane Keaton. If you'll remember that movie, Jack Nicholson takes a look at one of her paintings by Kenton Nelson and says, "Wow, nice painting." And the second I saw his artwork, I immediately fast forwarded to the end of the credits to find out who this artist was. I just love that it's like vintage Americana, and I've always loved vintage Americana. So when I found out who the artist was, I did a deep dive and then discovered that he actually had a studio down the street from my in-laws in California. So I corresponded with him, and over the years we've actually become family friends, which is really cool. You don't get to say that a lot about artists that you really admire. So you'll see a lot of his pieces in my home. The other thing that I love about this entryway is we kind of infuse a little bit of whimsy into it. So you'll see that we have this hand chair, which is kind of unexpected. Sometimes it collects, dog leashes or stray Cheetos bags, but that's just life, and that's kind of fun. And then these two mirrors I love. We received these, we actually got these. The last house that we lived in was owned by an interior designer out of Virginia. And when she was moving out of the house, I asked her if I could buy them. And so they've stayed with us from our last house to this house. So this is the entryway. This is where it all starts. So the Garden Girls really started out of a love for gardening between my co-founders and myself, so Jill, Nicole, and myself. We create luxurious turnkey kitchen gardens and landscapes, really, for people who have never gardened before, or maybe people who have tried in the past but have failed. And we were you, so we have all failed. We've all made mistakes, but living in Houston, we perfected the 4 seasons of gardening, and now we just want to share it with everybody. So we create beautiful gardens for people. Okay, so come with me into the piano room, which is also pretty special. So welcome to the piano room. We call that the piano room for good reason. My husband actually plays the piano, and I love this room because the first thing that you notice is this great big French piece that houses all of our books. By the way, they're all turned, you'll see, backwards. So when we first moved in and I did this, it drove my husband crazy because he would always ask, like, where's my so-and-so book? And finally I was like, you have to just order another one from Amazon because I can never turn these books back around. So this to me is like art. I love the colors of the like monochromatic scheme here. And a funny story about this piece is that we actually had it in our last house, which was a small house, but it had really big ceilings. And so there was a topper on this piece. And when we moved into this house, my first concern was how is it gonna fit in this room? And so we had to have it cut down a little bit, but it's a perfect fit and we'll probably never get it out. So we have to live here forever. The other thing that you'll notice is I have a lot of collections. And collections to me are very comforting. The suitcases I started collecting when I purchased my first condo, like out of college. It was a studio, I think it was like 700 square feet in Seattle. And I had no garage, no storage space. And so the only way that I could store things was to keep them either in plain sight or hidden behind dresser drawers. So I started with one suitcase that I purchased at a flea market there, and it housed, odds and ends. I will tell you that every single suitcase here houses my Christmas ornaments. So it's storage that's beautiful, but it also is very functional, and I want to show you something really cool. Every suitcase has ornaments, and I'm a little bit type A, so this whole side is for the entryway Christmas tree, which is like our balls tree, our pretty, multicolored tree. And then we also have a tree in our family room, which is kind of more the sentimental ornaments. And so this side, this is really special. These are all the ornaments that my kids have made and that we've made together. I mean, they're all kind of funky ornaments. But the coolest thing, this is another story, is that I have this Christmas ornament that's a needlepoint, and guess who made it? Barbara Bush. And there's a big story behind this ornament because when I was a little girl, I didn't have grandparents that were alive, and I used to wish that Barbara Bush was my grandmother. So I would write to Barbara Bush, and she would never write back, but I don't know why I wanted her to be my grandmother, but I always did. And so when we moved to Houston, we lived in the same neighborhood as the Bush family. And we would often see Barbara walking around the park with her Secret Service guards. And whenever we would see them, we would immediately pull over and go walk around the park. And so over the years, I have all these great photographs of Barbara Bush with my children. And I chaired a gala for their preschool one year, and up for auction was this needlepoint sad clown, which also is kind of weird. I don't know why it's so sad. But she used to belong to the same church where my children went to preschool. And so she would needlepoint with the women, and up for auction every year would be one of her ornaments. Well, it took about 5 or 6 years for me to actually win this because it inevitably happened that I would be bidding against a friend or somebody else and I would never win it. So finally, I got the Barbara Bush needlepoint Christmas ornament, and so our lives have come full circle, I think. But this is just where I house all of our special Christmas ornaments. I love suitcases. I think they're really pretty. The texture's really cool. They've all come from different flea markets, Salvation Army, Goodwill. I think 2 are from Paris, but they all have a story, and that's what I love. The other thing that I love, this is a painting from my great-grandfather. His name was Nikolai Pershing, and he lived in Russia. So you'll see this flower painting here, and then on the other wall, you'll see a painting that he did of some of the Russian Orthodox churches. And that was really special because these are the only two things that I have from him. This painting actually I got at the Paris flea market, and I just fell in love with this family. I just think the detail is so cool. And also I love that the frame is like really old and chippy and kind of falling apart. And so this is kind of like a fun display area too for art. We hang Christmas stockings, we do all kinds of things, so it changes throughout the year. Here you'll also see another collection. So I have these baseballs, and I found these, I think, at a Goodwill in Seattle or maybe San Francisco. And I love these because when my husband was growing up, he and his 5 brothers and his parents would do baseball trips every summer. They kind of just reminded me of like this nostalgic feeling of good old American baseball and summertime, and they reminded me of him, so I picked those up. One other story about this room, the couch is pink, and my husband is colorblind. So when I purchased this, I think this is from Interior Define, I told him it was blush because he doesn't know what that means. And so it's been a couple of years, and he always comes in this room and he's never once said to me, why do we have a pink couch? Until our friends were over one day and they were like, dude, you have a pink couch. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's blush. And so we had to break it to him that it is actually in fact pink. So, sorry. The last couple of pieces here, this is a sign from Round Top. I fell in love with it. It's just super fun, and I love old industrial signage. So if ever I see a piece like that, I'm all over it. I had to like carry it on my back to get it in the car and bring it home. And then this is kind of fun. I got this for our 10th wedding anniversary, and this is my favorite wedding photo. We were married in Napa Valley at a winery at sunset, and this was when we were walking into our reception. And so I had the photograph done by an artist on Etsy, and she converted it to this cool wood slab. So that's kind of fun and different, and I love it. I have a little collection of here of just little Mary, and my kids used to play with their crowns, and I think those have all come from different flea markets. I think a few are from Round Top. You can tell that I love collections. There's something so calming to me about repetition. And so even the tennis rackets that are on the wall, those have been a really fun piece, because if you have a great big wall that's very wide, I often feel like that's kind of tricky to decorate, and I don't want something that feels super long. So I like that the tennis rackets break the space up. And we have a tennis court in the backyard, and so it's kind of a nod to, like, again, vintage Americana and, I don't know, the good old days, I guess. So that's my piano room. My decor style is really layered, and I know that's kind of a blanket term, but it's really the story of our lives, and it's collections, it's things that have been curated over the years and through our travels. And so I think my decor style is like Nancy Meyers, a little bit of Martin Bullard Lawrence, and then a lot of me. So it's all kinds of different styles, but there's an under element of like fun and quirkiness. So now let's go see the dining room. Welcome to the dining room. So this is really my more is more room, and obviously you can feel that in here. I love this room, and it's probably the least used room in our home, but it's really where we have our celebrations. So right away you see this chandelier, and that was the first thing that I purchased for our house before we had anything else in it. I fell in love with it. I don't even remember where it's from, which is funny because the table is also new. And I love old things so much more than new things that I can tell you every single story about a piece that I picked up at Goodwill or Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or a flea market, but I can't tell you where I got this table. That to me is really interesting about old pieces. Like, they have a history and they have a story, and I think that's why I love them so much. And also, if they're already a little bit worn and weathered, it's even better for a family like ours because that first scratch on a new table is kind of heartbreaking. So I infuse a lot of old pieces with our new pieces. Speaking of which, so this china, this is a funny story, but when we first moved to Houston, I was joking with some moms at our preschool that we moved to the South and we don't even have a china pattern. And when we got married, my husband and I both registered for china, and it meant nothing to me. It wasn't something that we were used to or that we ever thought that we would need. And I think we ended up getting like 4 plates, and I don't even like the pattern, to be honest. But the second we moved to the South, I realized that women here take their china very seriously. And I love that. I kind of admired that. So I was joking with my mom friends about us not having china for our daughters. And we had a trip to Paris planned with our oldest daughter, who was 6 at the time. And they said, you should go look in Paris. Go look at the flea market and find some china. And so sure enough, we took our 6-year-old to Paris, and we found this beautiful set of blue and white plates. I think there's probably like 11 plates. We had more, but some were broken, and that's just fine with me. But I have this picture of her sitting in the hotel after we found this set, and she's holding her little plate. And I will tell you that we use this for everything. Every celebration, every birthday, over the holidays. Sometimes we mix and match. And now I just think that it's so much more special than registering for china because it has a story. It's already lived a life. And I also like to keep it a little bit more informal. Like, sometimes I'll just put our silver out in little jugs instead of, really dressing the table. I'll probably dress the table. But for now, I think it's fun to just use ironstone and put all of the silver out here. And I also love to decorate with things that are unexpected. So fruit is a very simple way to decorate a table. So is this giant basket of bread, which is the first thing that people see when they walk into my house. And I have had so many questions when people come in and they're like, is that real bread? And it actually is real bread, and it's probably like 3 years old. It doesn't get moldy or anything, which is so funny. Sometimes when we have little kids here, like over Thanksgiving, you'll see them running around the house and holding bread like it's a sword or whatever, and that's just fine with me. So we just keep our basket of bread here, and I love it. I think it's pretty and fun. So this Venetian mirror I found in Round Top last year, and this was such a score. The thing about shopping Round Top is if you see something and you love it, you have to grab it because chances are it's gonna be gone in like 2 hours. So when I saw this piece, I paused, didn't get it right away, had a mimosa, and then quickly went back and bought it because I knew it would be easier to apologize later to my husband for buying it than regretting it and like talking about it forever. So that's a Round Top find. And then so is this fun piece here. I think this is Positano. I found this also in Round Top and I absolutely loved it. I didn't even hesitate. I had to have it. So the fun thing about this is I think the red and white plays off of the stripes in the flag, which I found in Oregon at this wonderful little shop. It's called Sesame and Lilies. And I loved it. I love vintage flags. So we had that framed. And then here's another wall that it's so much space and I didn't know what to do with it, but I had all these baskets. And so one day I was like, that's it. That's what we're gonna do. They weren't expensive. I think a lot of them were purchased from Etsy, but I love the overall effect. I just think this room feels really warm and inviting, and it's happy. And although the table looks formal, if you look over to the little rattan bar cart, you'll see a nod to Sugar Hill Gang with the rap sang on the bar cart. So I think that's kind of fun too. I like to put a little bit of weirdness or fun, some kind of fun element in every room. The bar cart, by the way, was from Facebook Marketplace. I think I paid $25 for this, and I also love, look at the casters. This kind of old brass. I think it's just so cool. So, oh. Do you guys keep your remote control in your bar cart? Because I don't know why it's here, but we have that. That's fun. And then this, we live in a neighborhood where there are tons of pine trees, and so sometimes I'll just go back behind the gate and clip some pine boughs, and that becomes part of the art, part of the decor. So this is the dining room. The last thing I'll note is that we have a big collection of candlesticks. I think we have a couple of Tiffany candlesticks from our wedding, but they're also mixed with Goodwill finds and Craigslist finds. And I just love, I think that lighting makes a huge difference in a room. So anytime you can have candles or low lamps, even if you put them on timers, I just think it sets the mood. So dimmers, low light, all my favorite things. So thank you for seeing the dining room. So I grew up in this little tiny town called Calistoga. It's in the heart of the Napa Valley in California. And my father was a gardener. We had a little tiny rented house with a big garden in the backyard. And my experience gardening was really sitting on an overturned bucket, eating whatever he was harvesting fresh. So that meant a lot of summers with green beans, and I remember snap peas and fresh corn, and that was the extent of my gardening. But when I grew up and we moved to Houston 15 years ago, I saw a movie called It's Complicated with Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin, and Nancy Meyers was the set director. And there was this beautiful garden in Santa Barbara, and when I saw it in the movie, I immediately stopped everything and was like, I want that. And my husband kind of laughed because he said, well, you've never gardened before. And I said, well, I want to try. I want to learn. And that movie and that magical garden inspired me to learn how to garden. And I initially did it for the look, but after doing it for 4 seasons in Houston, gardening really became part of my life, and it gave me back so much more than I ever intended. So there used to be a sofa here that faced the fireplace with a little clear acrylic coffee table, but nobody would ever sit there because then they couldn't see the TV. So we got rid of the sofa, and I found this antique table in Round Top, not knowing where it was going to end up. So we put it here just kind of as an interim, like maybe it would end up in the closet or the laundry room or something. And this has become my favorite spot to work. So I bring my laptop or my iPad out here and I can do my work. I also do calligraphy, kind of modern calligraphy. And so I can sit here for hours while my kids are having breakfast or doing their homework, and we can all be together. I have found that me trying to office in a room that's closed off doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for me. So actually I like to be in the heart of the action, and after school I'll work on calligraphy or some work and we're all together. This little table is another fun story. I found this at an estate sale for 40 bucks. I'm so proud of it. The legs are super cute. It has all this bamboo, detail. I added these little IKEA cushions. It has some imperfections. It probably needs to be fixed up a little bit, but that's kind of why I love it. I love that it's secondhand. It's already lived its life. It has a story to tell, and Now it's getting like a second story. It's kind of like Garden Girls, honestly. It's like Life 2.0 for the table. So we just use this for games. We use this for reading. Actually, I can sit here and sew, do some embroidery because it's nice and light. And I want to show you, look at my sneak peek out this window. This is one of my most favorite outdoor spots. We have this fun pool sign that looks over this fire pit area and the swimming pool. So this is kind of a fun little place to just hang out, play Scrabble, do whatever. Over here by the fireplace, this is a giant, I think this is TJ Harris, and this is kind of my jam because it's still that vintage Americana swimwear vibe, and I love that it's the first thing that I see in the mornings. It makes me so happy. I do also collect quilts. So throughout our house, we have tons and tons of quilts. Red and white are my favorite. And now that we're getting more into fall and winter, I can really start bringing them out and layering them on the couch, on all the beds. I feel like there's this sentimental story with things that were used before, and quilts especially, somebody took the time to make it. So when I see them, I feel sorry for them and I want to buy all of them, but I try to stick to my red and white pattern. I think they're really pretty. So that is the living room. So this is our little tiny bar area, and if you didn't know, you can actually paint granite countertops. This countertop was never replaced when we redid our kitchen, and I'm fine with that. I just keep slopping over some high gloss oil paint, and it's holding up pretty well. So this is our little bar area. We have a bunch of collections in here too. You'll see the white dinnerware, and I just love looking at white dishes. So even though we don't have barware in here, this just makes me happier, and so that's what I get to look at. We have this family thing that we do. We're trying to hit all of the states. We go on nerd trips, and so we just hit Illinois and Indiana, and we're gonna hit Arizona and Nevada over Christmas. And so I think it's kind of fun that we keep this tally on states. Other things that I love to collect, I keep hotel keys. I'm not sure why, but I think that's fun to just have those memories back of different cities. And then wooden clothespins I think are really pretty. We've got our little record player here, so that's usually got some Taylor Swift going. And then look at this cute dog bed. This is from Etsy. I found this. So our dogs like to camp out in the bar. Who wouldn't? And that's our bar. So right off of our living room is our kitchen and breakfast area. Again, this table, brand new. Can't remember where I bought it. These dishes, Goodwill. I love China. I love old China. So I can't really tell you where I bought this table, but I did fall in love with it. And the one thing that killed me is, you'll have to come closer. Right after we got it, somebody painted their nails or took a Sharpie, and we have some marks here from life. But again, just like the little bar area, I just slapped some paint over this table. I've probably done it like 4 or 5 times, and voila, good as new. Because I cried when there was Sharpie on it, and my husband said, we just bought it, we're not replacing it, and it made me so sad. So then I just sanded it and put some high gloss oil paint over it, and look at that. I mean, I have to do it again, but you know what I mean. So these are also our show croissants, not to be confused with real eating croissants, which my kids laugh at me because you know I love Nancy Meyers so much, and she always has fresh bread or croissants out like in all of her kitchen scenes. And so I too have croissants out on like a platter or something most of the time. And so my kids will get up in the morning and they're like, oh, are these show croissants or can we eat them? And so most of the time they can eat them, but sometimes, like for you, Homeworthy, I'll put out some show croissants and they can't eat those. But we do like to have like candles everywhere, and I do also like to have fresh fruit everywhere, and that they can eat and should eat. We recently did a small update to this kitchen. So we did have some old granite countertops here, and I painted those for a couple of years when we first moved in, and they held up great. But after a couple of years, I was like, let's just do some quartz countertops and some new backsplash, and we'll call it a day for now. So that's what we've done in the kitchen. We updated the lighting. What else? I think the rugs are from Round Top. We also have fish because if you're a parent, you will at some point have fish in your house. And I don't know why schools still have fish at festivals, but these two have been here for a couple of weeks and they're going strong. So we've got our fish, and we've got a cute pink toaster, but don't tell my husband because he doesn't know it's pink. But this is the kitchen. This is where the rest of our lives go down. And you'll see, I love cookbooks, but I don't love to cook, but I'm trying to become better. Having a garden is very helpful because even if you don't love to cook, it's really fun to add garnishes with your herbs, and herbs also make everything taste better. So I do love to have my garden because it helps me become a better cook. This light fixture is actually like twisted grapevines, and that's kind of a nod to growing up in Napa Valley. I love the look. I think it's really cool, and I love the exposed Edison light. It's also incandescent, which is very hard to find. I shudder at LED lighting, so when I can have a nice, warm, real, true incandescent bulb, it makes me so happy. Up above, you'll see I have a collection of ironstone, which is another thing that I've collected for many, many years. And ironstone is such an investment, but I feel like you can use it everywhere, and it's so durable and it's beautiful. And then here you'll see when we saw this house initially, I fell in love with this china cabinet because, well, I think the last owners had like beer steins in it, but I saw it as a place where I could keep all of my china, which you know, I started collecting late, but I really love it now. So there's all kinds of china in here, and then all of these drawers are great because I can keep all of our napkins and place settings here. By the way, I'm also obsessed with linen napkins. So I really do not like to use paper napkins for anything. If I can have linen napkins every single day, I feel like that's such a small luxury. And the other thing I love is mismatched napkin rings. I think they're so special and just beautiful and sentimental. So that's the china cabinet. And in this little room, oh, look at this. This is my other favorite thing. Every single house we've ever lived in has had a chalkboard wall, and this is like our command center. So when my family says, well, you didn't tell me about this or this, I say, look at the wall, it's on the wall. And it holds everybody accountable. Sometimes I even put down what I'm gonna cook for the week, and that holds me accountable. But it really is truly our life. Like, we need this kind of organization. So it's not every day that you get to see my month in advance, but here it is. This is us. This little room used to be a laundry room, but I do not like to see clothes washing next to my breakfast table. I just think that's so gross. So this has now become like a mudroom, kind of multi-purpose. It's just got a dinky little IKEA desk for now, but that's working for us, and it just kind of holds all the stuff. So I like that I can just shut these doors. I don't have to look at anything. It's just nice and clean and contained. So that's my little utility room. I think connecting with nature in any sort of capacity is important, but specifically gardening feels very meditative to me, and it got me through times of grief. It's gotten me through, whenever I feel anxious, or especially during COVID, even when my kids were feeling really anxious, the garden was always a place where we felt comfortable and at peace and quiet. And so it can mean a lot of different things to different people. It's the one place where in the morning I like to start my day because it feels like a good, beautiful, happy way to start. But even at the end of the day, if I'm exhausted and I come home from working in other people's gardens, the first place that I want to be is digging in my own garden. There's something so therapeutic about it that I really can't describe. It's almost like my church. It feels amazing. Okay, so if you're ready, now we're gonna go outside and see my most favorite room, which is our outdoor garden room. So come with me. I can't wait to show you. Okay, this is my Nancy Meyers inspired garden space. I can't wait for you to see it. So this used to be just one giant strip of grass, if you can imagine that. And when I first told my husband that I wanted to start gardening, I started with one little dinky raised garden bed, and it was sitting on the bed of grass. By the way, that's a terrible way to start gardening. But I got comfortable with it, and then we added a couple more beds, and then I got to 5 beds, and we started to have competitions on who could grow like the best tomato, and we all as a family kind of got really hooked on it. And then COVID happened, and I really found that being outside became my classroom. So while my kids were at home studying in different rooms, doing their homeschool, I was outside gardening every day, learning about what to grow in Houston. And it was that time that I realized I needed to have like a gravel base. I needed to have proper drainage. I needed to have better soil, better beds. And so I went from 1 bed to 3 to 5 to 14 during COVID. And during that time, Martha Stewart found me on Instagram. Okay, not Martha Stewart, but her crew found me on Instagram, and they wanted to film my gardens for a new show that was coming out during COVID. And so my job was to impress Martha. And it was a show called Getting Down and Dirty with Martha, and there were 8 episodes. And my episode was the very last to air. It was the vegetable gardening, Impress Martha. And I was so nervous that the day before I told my family and friends, like, we're not gonna have a watch party. I'm way too scared. I don't know how it's gonna be edited. And so the morning that it aired on Discovery Plus, my husband and my kids and I all gathered on the sofa, and he grabbed my hand and he said, whatever happens, it's gonna be okay. And I think even he thought that Martha was gonna be pretty harsh. And we watched the episode together, and I was literally holding my breath as I described my garden and how I grow vegetables and how I have proper drainage. And she said, she reminds me of me a long, long time ago, and I'm very impressed. And I literally cried because I felt so relieved and happy and grateful, but also proud. I felt proud of what I've grown and how gardening has really changed my life and my family's life. So this is my garden, and I would love for you to come inside and take a look at everything that I'm growing right now. That the interesting thing about gardening is that it changes not just season to season, but it actually changes day by day. So last week I had these big, tall, incredible dark red sunflowers growing on this side and on this side. and then it rained like crazy and they all died. So I had to take them out. But that's the beauty of gardening, is that it keeps you really humble. And for somebody like me who loves a presentation and loves a styled story, it kind of kicks you in the butt sometimes. Like, you can't control Mother Nature. You can only control, you know, so much. So, no sunflowers, sorry. But I wanted to show you this amaranth in the corner here, which is like 12 feet tall now. And look at how it's leaning over. It's being supported by a tiny little string of twine. But that I actually use for cut flower arrangements. It's a grain, but it's so beautiful. And if you take a look at this bed here, this is my native and pollinator bed. So these are flowers that are native to Houston. This is called a black-eyed Susan, or Rudbeckia. And I have these mixed with this teddy bear sunflower that's still coming up, some salvia. This is a rock rose, and look at that. It only blooms during the day and it closes at night. So I think that's so special too. The butterflies, the bees, they're all over this garden, but they really love the natives and pollinators. And then in this next bed, you see these flowers here are just starting to come up. They're starting to germinate. This is ranunculus and anemone, but they won't actually bloom until spring. So gardening also gives us the ability to be patient. We have to wait for something good to happen. It's not instant gratification. It takes a long time. Over here we have this beautiful kale that almost looks like prehistoric. And I love how it's mixed. This is a Swiss chard. It's called Rainbow Lights. This to me is like edible art. I think it's just so incredible to have these colors and this veining. Look at that, isn't that amazing? And then here we have all this beautiful lettuce. This is radicchio. This here is arugula. And when you grow it and it's this short and small, it's called a microgreen. As it gets taller, it becomes more peppery. So really and truly, you want to eat it when it's really young. This was all started from seed. This is really fun. This is Brussels sprouts, and these are going to get nice and tall, and you're going to see those really tight buds start to form at the bottom, and that's really fun. Look at this. We have some broccoli forming. Do you see that broccoli head here? Isn't that cool? And then, oh, I have to find it. There's a cauliflower that's just starting to form. This is all lettuce over here. Okay, so this, look at all this different lettuce. This is I think this is a Paris Island lettuce. It's like a romaine. So that's really nice. And then this flower, this is called calendula. This is actually edible. So you can eat the flowers. And then look at these carrots. These beautiful carrot tops are starting to form. These are still going to take probably 60 more days before they'll be ready to pull. But my goodness gracious, they just look so beautiful. I would love to show you this greenhouse too. This is brand new to me. I just had it sort of set up. But let me show you, it all began with a garden. I love that we put this little sign over it. And inside, take a look. Isn't that wonderful? So I'm just getting it set up because it's brand new. We just added it, but I am already so in love with it. And I have to say, I have some big plans for some little white lights to go in there and some stars for the holidays. This area is kind of where my dogs like to hang out, and they like to be with me in the garden. So we have their little dog house here. And then this is a really fun, just extra, we had a lot of problems with drainage over here. So our solution was to turf this. It's a nice place for the dogs to do their business. Also, it's just another nice shady spot. I like to create these like almost storybook moments around the house where there's space for everybody to get away. So if my kids want to come and do homework in the shade, or if I want to bring my laptop out here and work, it's just another nice place to hang out. And then this is our, I call it the garden studio. It's where I keep all the tools and everything, but this little pinky girl I found in Round Top, and it was old and kind of crusty and rusty, and I just spray painted it pink. And I think it's so fun here because as you drive in the driveway, you can tell like this is kind of the girly area. I have 3 daughters, we all kind of like it. So, okay, so this is the little garden studio, and I had lighting put in. I have a little refrigerator so I can store our bulbs that need to be refrigerated. And this is just kind of like my garden shop. I keep all the tools here and everything that we need. It's just kind of another fun space to make gardening easy and accessible, and it's pretty functional. I have to say the beauty about gardening is that it never stays the same. So from season to season and year to year, my favorite thing changes. When I first started gardening, my favorite thing to grow was Brussels sprouts because they're really cool and they almost look kind of prehistoric. But now I'm really into cut flowers, and so I love growing things like ranunculus and anemone. And I think it's pretty magical when you can grow something from a tiny little seed and it becomes this, overgrown 12-foot giant sunflower. So it changes season to season. I can't wait to show you my amaranth because that right now is really a showstopper. My best gardening tip is to have the right setup. And by right setup, I mean, really with Garden Girls, we have some elements for success. You have to have good sunlight, you have to have good soil, and you have to have good irrigation. Okay, so right off of our garden area is our back patio, and this is another great living space for us. You think about Houston and how hot it can be, but really that's just like 3 months in the summer. We get to live outside 9 months out of the summer. So this is a space where we spend a lot of time, and it's just light and bright and airy and open, and we have this sort of living space here with a fire pit. We put in the pool a couple of years ago. It was actually right after COVID. It was one of those after COVID pools. And then in the back here, we have a tennis court. We have a putting green. We have an outdoor shower. So our swimming pool is used year-round, and I love that it has this kind of California vibe. The fire pit is right off of the swimming pool, which is also really nice because the adults can hang out, the kids can swim. Sometimes we set up a big movie screen, a projector, and then you'll see in the back is that tennis court. And I will tell you, the tennis court has had equal use for basketball, for roller skating. My kids practice lacrosse on the backboard there, and it's just a great, fun, multi-purpose space. On Thanksgiving, sometimes we have a big competition. It's called like the Turkey Trophy, and we do like relay races out there. We get real nerdy, but it's just a fun outdoor space that we get to utilize during fall and winter, basically every time except summer. We're out here. So it's really fun. And the last thing that we've done most recently is we added speakers all the way around the pool, in the gardens. We have this big like subwoofer thing happening. So I can just hit a button on my phone and I have music playing in my gardens, out by the pool, everywhere. And it's awesome. And honestly, that's what sold us on this house. Is the property is about 1 acre and it's kind of in the heart of the city, so it's very accessible. But once my husband saw the layout of the land and how much space it was just for the kids, we just knew that this was the right home for us. So we love it. So home to me is a place where my kids feel so comfortable that they actually don't want to leave. I laugh and tell them that I show my love to them through my home because I'm probably not the best cook. But when they come home and they kick off their shoes and they run upstairs or they jump on the couch, that to me is really where love is. And home to me is about our stories and our travels and just being together. So I think my house represents the biggest, best kind of love to my family.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping.